Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to say I'm sorry I haven't done a video in quite a while. I've been working on a really interesting project, which is really going to help you the moment that I launch, so I'm not going to talk too much about it right now, but I did want to make a video that is kind of different to all the other advice that's being given out there at the moment. So in this video, I actually want to focus on what it is that you should do if your passport is lost in a foreign country. Now, I'm going to tell you my story because I figured that this is probably the only reason why it happened. So when I first started out, as most of you know, it took me about 3 months to get my first gig. And then this gig in itself was not the ideal situation. But I worked for it for the summer, and then I eventually decided to leave. Now, when I decided to leave, I was in Ibiza, and at the time my favorite artist was Ben Howard. And I resigned and then realized that he was going to be performing there in 5 days. So I had 5 days that I needed to stick around for so that I can go to the concert. Now, I already had an interview lined up in Palma, so I managed to meet this boat captain who allowed me to stay on the boat if I help him with washdowns in the morning before the guests come on, and then the rest of the day I basically just ventured around Ibiza. So it was a pretty sweet deal, except for the fact that I sprained my ankle during this time as well, so it was a bit tough. I had my first panic attack. But anyway, so the day of the concert, I went and I drew a little bit of cash and I bought my ferry ticket back to Palma, where I had an interview lined up, and then I basically hopped on the bus and I went through to San Antonio where the concert was going to happen. It was going to be in at the Hard Rock Cafe. Anyway, so I get there, and as I arrive, I'm basically walking up this road, and this homeless guy came walking up to me and asked me if he could buy me a smoke. I was a smoker at the time, and I happily gave him one, and then I asked him for some directions, and he was so friendly. We ended up chatting for a bit, and I walked into a store because it was so hot, and I bought him and myself a beer, and then we went our separate ways. Anyway, I went to the concert, and wow, to this day, probably still one of my favorite concerts of all time. Anyway, so after the concert, I decided not to book a hotel because I kind of wanted to save the money because I didn't have a job at the time, right? So, which was a silly mistake. If you have a chance, just book a hotel. Anyway, I figured I would just stay up the whole night. So I walked around the town for a bit, and for those of you that don't know, San Antonio and Ibiza is basically like the student party town for all the Brits, right? So it was rough, like just walking around and watching people were partying hard. Anyway, I walked around for a bit, and I went and I grabbed some dinner, and then I went and I sat on the beach. And I mean, it wasn't too many hours left until sunrise, so I just sat on the beach and I listened to music, and eventually I was like, you know what, I actually really feel like going for a swim. So I took off my saddlebags and I just put my feet in the water, and I was literally 2 steps away from where the water was. And I was like, no, maybe this is a bad idea. And I turned around and my saddlebags were gone. Now, in my saddlebags were my passport, the last bit of my cash, my bank cards, obviously. This all included, obviously, my visa, like me being allowed to legally be where I was. So that was kind of frustrating, and my whole world just crashed in that moment. Now, for those of you that know me, you know that I'm not a crier, but after having this horrible experience on this boat, this guy his family was known for bringing slaves to Portugal, so he was not the nicest guy to work for. So after going through that whole experience, and then my stuff being stolen, I just fell apart. And I walked the beach up and down, just looking to see if I can see anything. And I eventually just sat on the beach, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the next moment, this guy walks up to me, and it was the same homeless man who I bought a drink for the previous day. And he was like, what's happening? What's going on? And I explained the whole story, and he was like, okay, come with me. So he took me straight to like the police station. And this is the thing that you should do if your passport is stolen or lost. You have to go to the police station and file a claim, because that will help. If you have travel insurance, you need that document for travel insurance. So even though you're in a panic and you hate your life right now, that is the thing that you have to go and do. So I'm so grateful for him. He took me and we did all the paperwork and everything. I remember the Spanish police being like, in the beginning they were a bit impatient, but they came around and they were very friendly at the end. So then he said to me that he actually knows of a spot where these pickpocketers, where they drop the empty bags of the stuff that they've stolen. So he took me there, and it was literally just like 20 meters away from where I was sitting the whole night. And my saddlebags were there, but they were obviously empty. So I was stoked that I got them back. And then he took me to the ferry office to see if I could reclaim my tickets. And it turns out that you can only get your ticket back if nobody has used the ticket that you bought, but you have to re-buy another one. So this homeless man gave me €5 so that I could catch the bus back to Ibiza Old Town, where I knew some people that I just met that week, Julia and all her crew, and I managed to borrow $100 from them and buy my ferry ticket so I could get to Palma, get to that interview and get that job. And fast forward a few months after that, I met up with Julia. We became really, really good friends, paid her back, and all was sorted after that. But I remember thinking that now I'm stuck in this country where I'm not allowed to be, really, without my visa, without my passport, and it was super stressful and it's quite overwhelming. But I kept having this thought in the back of my mind that there's a reason why it's happening to me, right? And it's probably so that I could help someone who that happens to in the future. So that is the message for this video. Guys, if you lose your passport in a foreign country, the first thing you have to do is go to the police station and file a report. And that piece of paper is the one thing that you will need for your insurance. It's the one thing to prove that your passport is stolen, so that you can fly to the nearest embassy in order to apply for a temporary passport. And another thing to note as well, if you are flying without a passport, with the intent to go and get a new one, don't book with a cheap airline, because they lie to you. I booked 3 tickets where they told me it's fine, just come with a letter, come with a police report, and then we'll let you board. And the earliest flight was 5 in the morning, and every time I get there, and they just wouldn't let me on the plane. So don't buy the cheapest tickets. Ryan Airline, you suck. All the other cheap ones, they suck. They tell you that it's okay, but it's not. Buy the most expensive ticket, and then you'll be fine. Then you'll be okay to fly. Okay, so that's my bit of advice. Share this video if you can, because you never know when people get stuck, and when they're in that situation, it really sucks and people are not thinking clearly. But I really want to ingrain it into people. You have to go and do this paperwork thing. It's going to save you in the long run. Alright, see you in the next video.